Hello, Manong George here. Welcome to our channel. And today we have a very special guest.
My name is Sid. I'm 32 years old, dating bayaning puyat, and currently a registered nurse in the UK.
Central London OSCE or London Hospital OSCE. You decide. Our Central London purpose-built NMC OSCE course and practice rooms include all of the equipment you need to practice for your NMC OSCE exam. You get the same expert team by your side, the same expertly prepared materials, and now a dedicated space built just for our international and return to practice nurses. Learn more at www.oscenurses.com.
So I came to the UK last year by the end of March, and ever since I've been living here. And currently I am in Windsor. It's a touristy town just outside West London.
The Duchess of Windsor.
Man knows best.
So I had like a total of more than 3 years in two different companies for a similar job title. It's actually called an intake nurse. So basically, what we do is just to enter medical requests into the system. So for me, like the biggest takeaway for working in the BPO is getting like a better perspective or a whole new perspective as a nurse, that we are not like we should not settle for like this typical or the stereotype nursing jobs, but rather, we can progress in a different field, but still maintaining the knowledge of like medical information.
Overseas call centers.
It was a back office account. So basically, we do not receive calls, but rather we call out medical providers or doctor's office to get information. So that's the time we had like the phone call.
Man knows best.
Yes, so prior to joining the BPO industry and even coming here into the UK, I had a total of like 2 years of solid nursing experience. So I was part of the RN program way back 2012. So I went home to my province in Tawi-Tawi, where I work as a nurse, both in the community and a hospital setting. So during my time, there was like a rotation from community and then hospital. So yeah, it was actually a nice experience because I felt like it's good or it's nice to give back to the community where I grew up in.
Man knows best.
Before I came to the UK, it was actually I applied in an agency which was recommended by my former colleague in the same call center that I was with. So yun, the reason bakit doon was because of the long work gap from hospital. So when I came in here, because the company usually hires like, or the agency usually recruits nurses who have like long working gaps from hospital, and they usually put them in a care home. So that's the reason why I was also introduced to that kind of agency. So
Man knows best.
okay, adjustment itself, like the coming and moving here into the UK, was an extremely difficult decision. Just because living in the Philippines and then comparing it living to the UK, it's a totally different world. So to be honest, like the first few months was like the hardest, and I felt so literally alone. The only like fortunate thing was that my support system, my colleagues, my friends and family were always there to support, to give me like a call, and it was very helpful. In terms of like the work, it's obviously coming from the BPO industry compared to the working in a care home. It's a different job. Like it's a 360-degree turn. It's I'm now looking after patients or residents, as we call it, and no longer facing the computer like for the next 8 hours. So it's totally different job. And but I feel like the work itself, you'll get used to it as you continuously work in a care home. So I was able to actually settle in, like our adjust after like a couple of months, because coming from a BPO, looking at the computer as we call it, or looking at paperworks, and then all of a sudden I have to look after 20 residents. It was a massive um, adjustment on my end. Yeah.
Manong knows best.
So, with regard to OSCE training po, I was actually part of a care home company. So we didn't have like an in-house training. So what happened was the company actually sent us to a review center. So where we like stayed for 3 days for an intensive review. It wasn't enough. So I would say, with regard to OSCE training or OSCE preparation in general, it wasn't bad, but it could have been better, because after that training, we were sent back to our towns, and then we had to train and have to review and master like the criteria. So unfortunately, on my home, we didn't have like the materials like to be used, like wound care dressing or catheter. So I had to really be resourceful and imaginative, just for me to be familiar and memorize yung criteria. Because in that 3 days, going back to that training, 3 days, I mean, all the stations, I had 10 stations and I have like 12 to 15 skills to memorize. 3 days wasn't enough. And there was like 20, 30 of us in that room. So, we only had like 3 trainers, and obviously the number itself wasn't enough for us to be prepared. So I had to be resourceful. I had to be to work harder, because we didn't have like the typical in-house training which was available in the NHS.
Manong knows best.
I'd highly recommend that you guys take your English test, because obviously if you have the number, it will take you to places. And if you guys want to experience like living and experiencing the unpredictable UK weather, or our, the safer environment, or even our extensive transportation service, and lastly the diversity here in the UK, because this is a melting pot. I mean, I would highly encourage you guys to come, because this is a whole new experience. So and for me, coming here was a form of self-investment. And honestly, I could say right now that I made the right decision of coming here to the UK. Yeah. So I hope you guys, make the same, or take that leap, or take that exam and come to the UK and make a great decision out of it.
Manong knows best. Put your worries to rest when staying in the